The WANBO T2 Ultra is mostly only Ultra in name, but there are still a few interesting features that I found worth presenting. Hi everyone. Well, you've probably noticed, at least if you watch my videos, that I particularly like WANBO projectors, and this started sometime with the WANBO T2 Max, which was a projector of a similar size to this one, had full HD resolution, included Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Android, so it was quite capable. However, the brightness wasn't too strong, as it could only manage 200 to 250 ANSI lumens, which isn't much. However, the features and size were such that it was definitely a recommended device in its time. A lot of time has passed since then, a lot of water has flowed under the bridge, and consumer demands have changed as well. WAN has also released many new projectors, and we've received a lot of new features. Nowadays, automatic functions are almost everyday features, like automatic keystone correction, automatic focus, and obstacle avoidance. So these are extras that we couldn't have even imagined a few years ago. The T2 Ultra is not left out of this either, which is obviously intended to be the successor to the T2 Max, and it somehow manages to do so, as the size, weight, and capabilities are essentially the same. If we look at the resolution, because this projector also has a full HD resolution, but this projector doesn't have 250, but 500 ANSI lumens of brightness, and this projector doesn't have a lousy speaker anymore. This projector no longer has a cheap Android operating system, but instead runs an Android TV system, which also means it has a Widevine L1 certification, and it also means that all major streaming services are available on it. So this is a true projector now. I will, of course, also go over the specifications, but first, we'll unbox it, take a look at the exterior, then move on to the specifications, and finally, as usual, I'll share my experience of using the projector, since I've been using it for a few weeks now. So, the unboxing, well, there's not much to focus on with the unboxing, as there isn't much in the box. There's the projector. There's the projector, a relatively simple remote control, and we get a power cable, and that's it. Essentially, we don't really need anything else, so why waste time on this? Let's take a look at what the projector looks like from the outside. Now, as you can see, this is quite a compact device, and that compactness means it's small in size and weighs about 1.5 kilograms, so it can be easily carried around. There are also a few things about its exterior that are definitely attention-grabbing. One of them is that this is WANBO's first gimbal projector. Gimbal projectors are those that can be rotated and tilted in all directions, making them suitable for projecting onto the ceiling as well. Although I must note, for me, this wasn't the most important feature. Rather, it was the fact that I don't need to use a tripod or any other solution to direct the tilt angle to the right spot, and I think that's incredibly great. And well, in my opinion, this is perhaps one of the most important features of this projector. In terms of appearance, you can see that the design has changed somewhat. The front panel has changed. There is no longer an air intake here. It has been hidden behind the glossy front panel, and you can somewhat see inside where the intake opening is concealed. The entire front panel has received this shiny white covering, which I think looks really cool. What remains a problem is that they don't provide a lens protector with this projector either. In fact, they usually don't provide a projector protector with WANBO projectors for some reason. I think this is quite a big mistake. It's not here either. However, we do have two cameras here at the front of the projector, and these cameras are used to ensure that the automatic functions work. So, with their help, the automatic keystone, automatic focus, and automatic obstacle avoidance will function. If we turn the projector over, we won't find much on the bottom either. Here, we find a connector, HDMI, USB, headphone jack, and we also have an infrared connector, a power input. More precisely, this is where we can input the 220 volts, which means that this projector has an internal power supply. Here we have a heatsink, an air intake, a subwoofer on top, and two speakers on each side. In this regard, it's definitely important to mention that this is the WANBO Mozart. This subwoofer solution was introduced first, which means there is an air chamber inside the projector. And as the two side speakers move the air in this chamber, they push the center of this membrane, giving us somewhat of a bass sound. So this is a 2.1 system. We have a pair of stereo speakers, and we have the subwoofer membrane here in the middle. This is definitely a specialty, as I mentioned. So far we've only found this in the Mozart 1, which is the manufacturer's premium category projector. We don't find many controls, just a single button on the top of the projector, which we use to turn everything on and off. Everything else will be controlled from the remote, which is a relatively simple piece, but it's very important that we find dedicated buttons for streaming apps, which is a very advantageous feature. I really like this, because I watch most of my movies via streaming now, rather than downloading them. I don't usually download, so that's why. I really like these projectors that have Android TV, run streaming, and have Widevine L1 certification, so I can watch the projected image in full HD. Now I should talk about what the machine can do, but I've already mentioned most of these. As I said, it has 500 ANSI lumens brightness, which is very important, because its predecessor only had half of that, and let's admit, that was a bit lacking. Okay, I've gone over the specifications, we've looked at how it looks, and we've unpacked it, so now we can dive into what it was like to project with this machine and what it was like to use it. First and foremost, I have to highlight that the colors of this machine are surprisingly good. In the default settings, there's room for adjustment, but once you fine-tune it, you get really good colors. The contrast is excellent, and the colors are beautiful and vibrant. However, I must also mention that with the adjusted colors, the 500 ANSI brightness won't actually be 500 ANSI in my opinion. I would estimate it to be around 400, based on visual assessment, though I can't measure it precisely. However, due to the dynamics and contrast, it's definitely worth adjusting the colors. I think that even with 400 ANSI, you'll be just as satisfied as with 500, but the colors do enhance the projection experience, so I suggest you do the same. In one case, I would say don't worry about the colors, but instead, push everything to the maximum, high brightness, make everything big, if you can't completely darken the room. Because the thing is, this projector with 500 ANSI will look best if you properly darken the room, and if you can't darken it properly, then this brightness will be a bit insufficient to give you a proper cinema experience. However, if you can darken the room, you will get a surprisingly good quality from it, both in terms of picture and sound. As I mentioned, in terms of sound, there's this subwoofer at the back, along with these two small speakers. The projector is not too loud, though I think it's a bit louder than what the manufacturer claims. However, the fan noise is a very consistent hum. It doesn't change its speed, the sound doesn't change, it doesn't rattle, crackle, click, or knock, so there are no additional noises. So, while watching a movie, the speaker's sound completely drowns out.
How's it going? Going well. That's that new guy energy.
Except in one case. For example, if you want to project onto the ceiling in the bedroom at night, I tried it. Obviously, I had to turn down the volume somewhat because the family was already asleep and I was watching a movie. And when I turned down the sound, the fan noise was audible, so for this purpose, this device isn't too good, it's not perfect. However, it's definitely important for me to mention that the ceiling projection was perfect, as the keystone correction can be adjusted within very wide limits, not only horizontally but also vertically, so you can place the projector in many locations and still straighten the edges. What is really good about it is that with this projector, optical avoidance works properly, and this is really good because many projectors already incorporate optical avoidance. You see, this means that when, for example, there's a clock on the wall, or a picture, or anything, the projector detects it and adjusts the image, moving it to the right, left, or somewhere else, so that the optical is not included in the projected image. So, in the case of the WANBO T2 Ultra, this optical avoidance works really well. And this is definitely a positive, as the feature is not just on paper, but actually functional. I also find it important to mention, which I haven't said yet, that you can find that little thread on the base, which is usually put on these projectors. Since it is lightweight, you can screw it onto a relatively simple tripod, and if you do, you can position it really well, even so that it projects onto the center of the screen. Because with LCD projectors, there's still this issue, that if you need to adjust the keystone correction very sharply, there tends to be a little distortion, and a slight loss of brightness at the edges and corners. So, every LCD projector projects perfectly when you project directly from the center facing the middle of the screen. The question is whether it's worth buying this projector, and I think definitely yes, because its price is under 80,000 forints. Its features and capabilities are truly excellent, and its capabilities are very similar to the high-end projector, the Mozart one, because we get the subwoofer, the Android TV system, the Widevine L1 certification, so essentially the services are the same as with the Mozart, and we also get these automatic features that work great with the Mozart. And now even with this affordable projector, they really work excellently. So, if you want a projector that you can even project onto the ceiling with, if you can't solve it any other way, if you want a projector that already has a fundamentally good sound, not super good, but good sound, and if you want a projector that, while not in bright light, produces an almost perfect picture in complete darkness, then I can warmly recommend WANBO's new projector, the T2 Ultra, to you. Under the video on YouTube, you will find the link that leads to the purchase, and I'll also provide the coupon code, which allows you to buy it for under 80,000 forints. If you liked it, make sure to read my written article. I'll also include its link under the video on YouTube. Click on it and check it out. That's it for this video. That's it for this test. Take care of yourselves. Be good, and I'll be back with another test. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel. Thanks. Bye.